Alright guys, and welcome back. Today I want to show you a Voiceless Voice, the next best ritual deck that will come to Master Duel. I would guess probably quite soon. You can check out the video where I talked about what I guess will be the next decks and cards coming. It's in the top right corner. Go check that out if you have not seen that already. But I think that Voiceless Voice will be in Master Duel quite soon, personally, either in the next pack or I guess in the pack afterwards. So it's time to talk about this. Ritual decks have not really been around in Master Duel. There was Grytron obviously in the beginning of the game, but has fallen off its prime status. So Voiceless Voice will be the next big ritual deck. Obviously, ritual decks always have this problem, and this is why ritual decks do not really work, that they require a lot of cards. You can't use the extra deck, unfortunately. They require a lot of cards, so you need to pay basically 2 cards, the ritual card and then the ritual summon card, in order to make a ritual summon. And then you will also need to pay monsters from your hand for the level tributation of the ritual monsters, and this is just too expensive in a modern day Yu-Gi-Oh! And very interesting to see how Voiceless Voice has solved this problem. We can take a look at how they solved this problem by looking at 2 specific cards from the archetype that are very important. The first one being a Zafira, Dragon Queen of the Voiceless Voice, which says you can discard this card to send 1 ritual spell from your deck to the graveyard, then you can add 1 light ritual monster from your deck or graveyard to your hand. So let's just do that, and then I will explain to you why this card is so amazing. So you would activate her, she goes to the graveyard, and then you will use, or you will dump the Voiceless Voice ritual spell to the graveyard, and then you can add the Voiceless Voice ritual monster or any other ritual monster to your hand. We are adding the Voiceless Voice ritual monster, which is an Omni Negate that also destroys when the ritual monster itself and Lo, the prayers of the Voiceless Voice, is on the field. Those are retrains from older cards, which is quite funny. There was this old card, Novox Prayer, which Novox was the original name of this card, and then it was Lo in the TCG, it was Novox in the OCG, and now we have our ritual spell and the Zafira in the graveyard. But Zafira does not only does this, what we have just done with her, she also has the second effect. You can banish this card from your graveyard, ritual summon 1 light ritual monster from your hand by tributing monsters from your hand or field whose total level equals or exceed the level of the ritual monster. So this is how Konami solved the problem with ritual decks, right? Because as I just said in the beginning, you will need a ritual spell normally, this one we have now in the graveyard here, to make the ritual summon, and then you will need the ritual monster and you need tributation for the ritual monster. But now we have only 1 card that gave us the ritual monster, dumped to the graveyard the ritual spell that we will be able to use, because if the ritual monster gets destroyed, we can banish this ritual spell and then summon another light ritual monster from our deck, so we can replace the ritual monster if it gets destroyed. Very nice here. But we can also just banish the Zafira, and then we can ritual summon our Skull Guardian, Protector of the Voiceless Voice. In this case, we can also use the other card that the archetype has to help this problem of ritual summoning, which is the Lo. Because we can send Lo to the graveyard for the ritual summoning of the Skull Guardian, Protector of the Voiceless Voice, because, let's read the card, if you ritual summon exactly 1 light ritual monster, warrior or dragon, and you have either the warrior in the Skull Guardian, or you can also go ahead and use the dragon in the Sour Avis. A lot of decks are also running the Odd Eyes Pendulum Graph Dragon, which is a spell negate. The Sour Avis is an inherent summon negate, so inherent summon means something like I do an extra summon from the extra deck, I do a special summon from the extra deck, or for example, specialing a Diabellstar, specialing a Kashtira monster. These are inherent summons. Inherent summons are basically summons that do not start a chain. So you don't say in your hand, I activate the effect of card X to special summon it to the field, but you just go special summon a card. And this is what Sour Avis can negate, and then it will banish the card and be bounced back to the hand. But Sour Avis can also, by discarding it, protect the card on your field, a monster on your field, against a targeting card. So for example, if something targets, let's say we have the guy in our hand and something targets our Skull Guardian here, Infinite Impermanence for example, then we could go ahead, dump the Sour Avis to the graveyard to protect the Skull Guardian from the Infinite Impermanence. So we can use Lo for the entire tribute fodder for 1 ritual monster, but that's not all. So this is not enough to dump ritual or to make ritual playable again. So we have this ritual spell card here in the Zafira, which this card can ritual summon. It will get the ritual spell to the grave, and it will get you the ritual monster. So this is how Konami solved the first problem. And the second problem, we can use the Lo for the entire cost for the ritual summon. But not only that, we can also where is it? If a light ritual monster, warrior, or dragon is special summoned to your field while this card is in your graveyard, we can special summon this card. This is what just has happened. And then we also have the effect of the Skull Guardian, which can be declared to search a voiceless voice monster from deck to hand. And then we can also declare the low here, and low will then be special summoned to the field. We would in this case here search another voiceless voice card. We can talk about Sour Harvest next, search that to our hand with the Skull Guardian here, and then we will be able to activate low's third effect, because two effects are definitely not enough. The third effect says, if this card is normal or special summoned, you can place one voiceless voice continuous spell trap from your deck face up in your spell trap zone. This could be the barrier of the voiceless voice. This could also be the voiceless voice trap, the radiance of the voiceless voice, or the new spell, which I think if we get the archetype, we will also get this one, the blessing of the voiceless voice. So we have three different targets, and the cool thing is that you will be able to summon them or to set them basically from the deck even on your opponent's turn, and I will show you in a moment how we are going to do this. So what we now have here, obviously we can only decide on one. Let's say we decided on the barrier, because the barrier is normally the one that you first get. Now what we have here is we have the low and the Skull Guardian on the field, and as long as low is on the field or in the graveyard, Skull Guardian has double the attack, so 4100, and it's the Omni Negate. But for the Omni Negate effect of the Skull Guardian, which is once per turn, we need the low on the field. Low in the graveyard doesn't count. Then we have the barrier of the voiceless voice. While you control low, the prayers of the voiceless voice, and a light ritual monster, so could be the dragon, could be the Skull Guardian, but could also be the Pendlegraph Dragon from our deck. Your opponent can only target ritual monsters for attacks. Also, your opponent cannot target light monsters you control with card effects, which is very nice, because then the opponent can only attack the Skull Guardian, which is 4100 attack, and not the low, because remember, if the low leaves the field, then this is no longer an Omni Negate, but this card protects the low from being battled over, and it can also not be negated, because light monsters cannot be targeted as long as these two cards are on the field together with the barrier. And the barrier we can set with the low, right? So in the basic of basic combos, you would go ahead and normal summon the low, then you would place the barrier here. Barrier would search Zafira. Zafira would then dump the ritual spell, search the Skull Guardian, and then we could use our first low to bring the Skull Guardian to the field, get the low back to the field, and then you would have exactly this situation here that we have right here, right? The Zafira is banished, the ritual spell is in the graveyard, we have the barrier on the field, and then the Omni Negate on the field. This would happen if we only had this, and then obviously our Skull Guardian would also be able to search a follow-up voiceless voice monster here, okay? So this is the barrier of the voiceless voice. It can also once per turn search another voiceless voice card, which is very nice. This is a deck that if you are playing the long game, this has really nice resources to win in the long game. This can get back a lot of resources, can search resources from the deck to the hand, because if, for example, you activate the barrier of the voiceless voice and your opponent goes Ash Blossom this, then it doesn't leave the field, obviously. You can use it again next turn to generate more advantage. We have the blessing of the voiceless voice, which can get back once per turn any of our voiceless voice cards from the grave or banish to our hand. And then also when a normal or special summon happens that is not a ritual one, then we can ritual summon, or we can, after the summon has been done, we can ritual summon. So that's really cool. Let's, for example, say it's our opponent's turn and he summons any monster, then we could go ahead and activate the blessing of the voiceless voice. We still have the Sour Harvest in hand. We could go ritual summon the Sour Harvest, use the low for that because she can be used as the entire tribute. Then obviously low because it's our opponent's turn and we have summoned a dragon monster, a dragon ritual monster. We can resummon the low, and then low would once again be able to set another of the traps. Let's say in this case we are setting the trap card here, which is also very nice. You can decide which one of these effects you want to use. You can only use one in the main phase. You can target cards your opponent controls up to the number of light ritual monsters, warrior or dragon, and destroy both this card and as many of the cards you have targeted. So in this case, we could destroy two cards, and then this one would be destroyed, which was a problem before we had this card here. This was the latest edition because this went to the graveyard and was gone then. But now we can just add it back when it gets destroyed via our blessing. And the second effect that this card has is that we can also, and this is can be very important, shuffle one light ritual monster, warrior, dragon, or one ritual spell from our hand or graveyard into the deck, so we recycle resource, and then we can either add or special summon a voiceless voice monster from our deck. We cannot special summon the Skull Guardian, but we will be able to special summon the Skull Guardian with our next voiceless voice card, Sour Harvest, the Sage, the Dragon Sage of the voiceless voice. This one, by the way, is an inherent special summon, and you can see, or you can find out whether something is an inherent special special summon by the text here not having a double point, basically. So the entire text for the special summon here doesn't have a double point. It's basically this one here. You can special summon this card from your hand by shuffling 2 spells from your hand or graveyard into the deck, including a ritual spell. If this would be an effect, not an inherent special summon, here would say you can special summon this card from your hand, double point, and then the other condition would be here, but this is not the case. So we need to shuffle back 2 spells from our hand or our grave, including the ritual spell. So normally you want to keep this in the graveyard, because remember, if our light ritual monsters will get destroyed by card effect, we can just banish this one and resummon another one from the deck. So you want to use cards from your hand optimally, but you can also use this one from the grave. You don't need to keep it there, and then we can special summon Sour Harvest. And Sour Harvest can, quick effect, we can return this card from the field to the hand if our opponent activates any card. So let's say we want to do this, we can return this to our hand, so back to the hand, and then this can summon one of our light ritual monsters. So let's, for example, say we don't have our Skull Guardian on the field anymore, then we could go ahead and just use Sour Harvest to summon another Skull Guardian, right? This could be possible. This is why the Sour Harvest is a very nice card in this deck. Another cool tech that we can use is the Dynamondo. You can make the Dynamondo with one ritual monster and then one other monster. What you can do here is you can get these 2 to the graveyard, and then Dynamondo firstly can activate to shuffle back 1 ritual monster from our graveyard, and then we can shuffle one of our opponent's cards back into the deck. But this can also, in the draw phase, for example, or in any phase actually, quick effect, declare the effect, then it will for cost go to the graveyard, and then it can special summon back a ritual monster, in this case the Skull Guardian. And now we could once again trigger the low because we have summoned the Skull Guardian, giving us the ability to set another spell trap. So in this scenario we would not have this Sour Harvest on the field, we would only have the barrier and the Skull Guardian and the low. And if we would do it then like this, let's imagine this, we have this in the hand, we have this in the hand, and let's say we have this in the hand, and now we have done this Dynamondo play, right? We have made the Dynamondo, and on our opponent's turn we have gone Dynamondo effect, special summon back the Skull Guardian, that then special summon back the low, and now obviously low, because it's our opponent's turn, can once again be activated, and we can put another of the continuous spell traps on the field, which gives us an additional interruption in the form of the destruction that we get via this trap here. So these are all of the Voiceless Voice cards that are important, and then you have like very obvious support cards like the Pre-Preparation of Rites, add 1 ritual spell from your deck to your hand, and add 1 ritual monster from your deck or graveyard to your hand, whose name is mentioned on that ritual spell. Very good, gives us a lot of advantage here. We have cards like what else is ritual support in our deck. We'll go over the Diviner in a second here, but what's really cool about this deck here is that this deck is very nice when it comes to playing Nibiru, because Nibiru is a light monster. So one thing to note here, if you ritual summon using the Zafira, then you do not need to use light monsters for the ritual summon. But if you ritual summon using the ritual spell itself, which you will basically never do, but you can do obviously, normally you always want to use Zafira for this, you must also tribute light monsters, it says. So if you want to ritual summon with the spell here, then you will need to use light monsters. But the cool thing is that Nibiru is a level 12 light monster that you can use to ritual summon either Sour Harvest or the Skull Guardian or the Pendulum Graph Dragon, which, as I already said, is a spell negate. Another very important thing here, so let's bring everything back to the deck here. We can just quickly reset the deck. This is a bit faster. One of the cool combos and a very strong card in this deck that you really want to play here. We will just pretend that we have not drawn these cards here. Triple Pot of Prosperity. This is very unlikely. Unfortunately, we won't be able to do this in Master Duel, even though it's quite nice. The best starter that you can get is actually Diviner of the Herald, because we can go normal summon Diviner of the Herald, activate the effect to send a fairy either from our extra deck or our deck to the graveyard. In our extra deck, we have cards like the Enters that can then destroy a card, and in our deck, we have something very, very interesting. By the way, quick here, extra deck not that important. Dynamondo is really nice, Chaos Angel is really nice, and other than that, they are like generic, good extra deck monsters, I would say, but the extra deck is not that important for this deck. This deck normally wins through the deck itself by the use of Skull Guardian, negating opponent's effects. So we have activated the Divine of the Herald, and now we can send a fairy to the graveyard, and we can send the Trias Harakia to the graveyard. Trias Hierarchia says, during the main phase, if this card is in your hand or graveyard, quick effect, you contribute up to 3 fairy monsters, special summon this card. And then if you tribute 2+ monsters, 2+ fairy monsters, destroy 1 card your opponent controls, and if you tribute 3 fairy monsters, draw 2 cards. But this is not why we are playing this card. So we declare this, and then we tribute our Diviner of the Herald. This one goes to the graveyard. We will then get this Trias Hierarchia as a body, and then the Diviner of the Herald says, I always need to find these effects here, if this card is tributed, you can special summon 1 level 2 or lower fairy monster from your hand or deck except this one. Because we have tributed this for the Trias Hierarchy, because this says tribute, we are now able to summon from the deck level 1 or 2 fairy, and obviously this is our low, Prayers of the Voiceless Voice. And this starts our entire combo. We declare the low, then we can add we can set the Barriers of the Voiceless Voice to the field. And as I already talked about, basically you could now declare the barrier to get Zafira to the hand. Next thing you're going to do is activate the Zafira effect to get this to the graveyard, and then we would also dump the ritual spell to the graveyard and grab our Skull Guardian to the hand. Next thing we are going to do is activate the Zafira, banish the Zafira, then we can use our low as the entire tribute and special summon our Skull Guardian. Then we would go ahead and go low as Chain Link 1, we would go Skull Guardian, Chain Link 2, which means now we can search. If we had more spells available, but this is a 1-card combo, so we don't, we could now search our Arvis Dragon Sage of the Voiceless Voice. Unfortunately, we don't have 2 spells to do this, so we can also search follow-up, for example, via our Zafira here. The cool thing about Sour Arvis is if you can establish him on the board in the first turn, he can also tag out. If you don't need an extra Skull Guardian, he can just tag out and go into Sour Arvis, giving you an extra interruption, right? But let's say we have it like this, yeah? So we have added the Zafira to the hand, then obviously low comes back. She will not activate again because we've used her already. And now there are different things that we can do at this point. You can now go ahead and say, okay, I want another continuous spell trap. Then you would go ahead and make the Dynamonto here. This is obviously a bit more dangerous in Master Duel than it normally is because Master Duel has Called by the Grave. And if your opponent goes, so if I go draw phase, declare this, for cost it goes to the graveyard, and now my opponent goes Called by on the Dynamondo or on the Skull Guardian, then the whole effect is gone and my entire Omni Negate is gone. But if this goes through, obviously I can resummon the Skull Guardian, this can be resummoned to the field and then will activate once again too. In this specific case, the trap makes most sense because with the trap we can either decide to go ahead and summon our Sour Arvis, or we could go ahead and destroy something. A very cool thing that you can also do is, let's turn this back a bit. We will put this back to the deck and we will put this back to the extra deck. So let's say we had, this is obviously what is going to happen, more cards. And let's say we have activated a Pot of Prosperity also. Let's say we have 2 spells in our graveyard here. Then we would go ahead, this comes back to the deck, and we would have searched the Sour Arvis. We would then special summon the Sour Arvis to the field by shuffling back our ritual spell. Obviously we want to keep it there if we can, but getting this one to the field is better in my opinion. And now we could pass on this. You could once again go ahead and go Dynamondo with these 2 here. We could pass on this, and what we then could do on our opponent's next turn is bounce this back to our hand to establish from the deck the Sour Arvis that can inherent special summon negate. This is something we could do, for example. But another cool thing that you can also do, and you wouldn't even need this Trias Hierarchy for this, you can also go to the grave, I guess you can keep the low, doesn't really make a difference. You would send them to the grave. You can also send this one to the grave, and you can make an IP Masquerina. And now you might be asking, okay, how do I get back my Omni Negate? But we pass over to our opponent. Our opponent activates any card, and then we can declare the Sour Arvis. This will come back to the hand. This can be Ash Blossom though, so all of these plays are a bit greedy. And now he can summon a Light Ritual monster from the deck to the field. So he will summon the Sour Arvis, and then we can trigger the low once again, and we'll bring her back to the field, which now she can activate to set, in this case, the trap from the deck. You can obviously also set the Blessing of the Voiceless Voice if, for example, you have another ritual monster in the hand that you want to special summon on your opponent's turn, right? But then again, if you don't have this in your hand, then you don't need to set it here, because we can also search it next turn with the barrier to give more, or to get more, more upside by bringing our cards back to our hand, basically. So this is the setup we have. We can now use the Omni Negate, we can use the Destruction here, and then we can also use, obviously, the IP Masquerena to, for example, in this case, make a SP Little Knight have another interruption. And remember, as long as this is on the field, those can be targeted, and only light ritual monsters can be attacked. This is another very cool thing, because let's put it back here. We had this on the field. What's really cool, and a lot of decks struggle with this, but not Voiceless Voice, if you have a setup like this, then normally a problem is with your IP Masquerena that people can just go battle phase, run over this, but they can't because they need to attack the Skull Guardian. So this is protected from being battle phased over, basically. Is there anything else? I think we have gone over every like majorly important thing of this deck. Combo lines that you want to do, obviously there's a bit more to it, but I would say this is more like Sword Soul, honestly. This is a very simple deck that can generate a very nice board. This will not be the strongest deck in the entire game, but it's a very, very strong one. This suffers a bit from, in Master Duel, being 2 Cold Paragraphs that are basically in any deck. Cold Paragraph is definitely a strong card against this deck, unfortunately. And then playing into Max C, this deck is okay at playing into Max C. It depends on what you draw, I guess. You normally only want to establish, or you sometimes just want to establish these 2 cards here, and obviously this is a normal summon, this is a special summon, and if you can, if you don't need to use the low for the ritual summon, then you don't even need to resummon her. So in theory, you'd only need to give your opponent 1 draw with the Skull Guardian. So this is definitely not bad into Max C. Was quite a dominant deck in the OCG metagame, and will be a dominant deck, and I think a fan favorite in Master Duel, but obviously not at the power level of like Tear Elements or Snake Eyes or Branded, in my opinion. By the way, very bad Branded matchup. This is a very solid deck that's easy to play, and I think a lot of people will love. But let me know in the comments what you think of the deck. How seems the playstyle to you? Are you interested in playing this? Let me know. Thanks for being here, by the way. If you like my videos, please consider subscribing, hitting a thumbs up and the notification bell, and we will see each other in the next one.